Hey, everybody, welcome back to another podcast, the Rethink podcast. Cole's here, as always, and I hope everybody had a happy Memorial Day.
Yeah.
The weather actually turned out well.
Yeah. Did you do anything or did you just chill?
I'm building a pond up in the mountains, and so I was on a skid steer all weekend.
Nice.
Moving boulders.
Yeah, heck yeah. Boom. Just manly stuff.
I'm a mountain man.
Yeah, you are.
And I got two of my grandsons on there. We move boulders, and so now I'm just waiting for the ground to dry out.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy? Like, you're in the mountains, you have to use a skid steer to move those boulders, and it's like hundreds of thousands of years ago how they would move boulders and stuff without that.
Yes, it's called slavery.
Well, without that,
and I'm certainly
that's not what I was getting at.
Well, that's kind of like I don't know how they build the pyramids, it's like, or all those rock walls, and then you go, they did it through slave labor, and it's like there's I'm certainly not advocating for slavery at all, but you realize it's this is stuff we take for granted. Like I was, every time I'm hike the Colorado Trail or something like that, I'm like, oh, I hiked the Colorado Trail. Yeah. Somebody built it.
Yeah.
Somebody went up there and built it and put steps in. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I can make it up these steps.
The pioneers didn't have that.
No, they didn't have that. And I'm pretty spoiled. I don't have any idea how you would do anything in the wilderness or the mountains. I would just get on a wagon and go, okay, I'm going to go die now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm soft. I wouldn't have even made it. If I started in New York, I'm not making it out of the city at that point. It's not going to happen.
You can get off the island.
No, I'm not outdoorsy enough.
Should we restart this?
I don't think so.
Kind of south.
Yeah, quickly. Yeah, no, that's all right.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Two things to talk about today. First off, it is the 1-year anniversary of the day that you were put on sabbatical. Which
is it?
It is. I'm sure you didn't realize that or think about that or know that. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about is with that thought, it's been in your mind we talked about it for the past couple weeks, it's coming. Now it's here. There's a lot of people, it's like thinking to myself, it's like when it comes to my, the anniversary of my dad dying or my dad's birthday or whatever, there's always just it drudges up those emotions.
Yeah, it does.
So right now you're on, and the first one's always probably the worst. Sometimes it's hit or miss, but the first one's always the worst.
Right.
So for you coming up on this anniversary in your first go at it, first processing, whatever, just want to check on where your head was at and where you're seeing emotions show up that you didn't think were there, or what you're doing with those emotions after that processing moment.
Of course it makes sense. All of them, all of them. So so just take my sabbatical out and put whatever traumatic event that happened, the death of your dad or your divorce or you lost your job or something like that. It's a year later, it's obvious that God has done amazing things in my life. Okay. That's great. The trauma of a year ago today that I sat at this table and everybody filed in single file and handed me letters. And that's the TV show Intervention.
That's right. Yeah.
And they told me that, hey, and you don't hear everything, right? Mm-hmm. You don't hear, we love you. We're concerned about you. All you hear is you have to go away. Mm-hmm. All right. And you can't be here anymore. And you're not healthy. And all you hear is you look around going, I feel absolute betrayal. Yeah. Right. In the moment, I feel like injustice. I felt wronged. I felt unheard. I felt a whole bunch of stuff. All right. Now, over the next 6 months and even the next year, because it wasn't really till the end of sabbatical that the healing and restoration of some of those relationships started. Okay. And they have. Yeah.
And they've started. They haven't finished. They started.
No. Yeah. No, and I don't think it would be authentic for me to say everything's better than ever, all right? Because there's still there's a couple of things happened last week, and I went, see, it's still the same, all right? And I'm sure I've done things where people have rolled their eyes and went, he's still the same, right? So I just want to say this. You can acknowledge that it was the right thing, it was a good thing, and God used it in amazing ways. But it was the worst day of my life, okay? And again, I think people can fill in the blank going, listen, like it or not, whether it was right or wrong, my marriage was over. Mm-hmm. And whether it should have been or not, it's still something I never wanted to happen happened on this day. God used it. God redeemed it. I'm healed. I've really grown through that. But it brings back all of those emotions. And so I did. I scheduled with my counselor and went down and went, I thought I was over this, and now I'm feeling some of the same anger and some of the same pain and some like I looked up and down the hallways and went, "You effing betrayed me," all right? That came back and I looked at him and went, "I thought I'd be further along than this, but maybe I haven't healed at all." And he said, "No, whoa. He said, "No, it's that first anniversary is the trauma of the event. It's still the trauma of the event." And I think so. Again, I don't want to speak for God, but if I could, there's times when you go, it's okay to say that hurt a lot. And even if it needed to hurt, it still hurt. All right. And I think, and Harv, he let me off the mat and went, "Don't beat yourself up." You know, I told him, I said, I gave up Chick-fil-A and my cigars and pipes. And I said, "But on that weekend, I don't know." He goes, "You know what? Give yourself a break and have a smoke." And I did. All right. Because what you're not saying is nothing changed or I wish it wouldn't have happened. You're just saying it was really, really traumatic. Yeah. So here's part 2 of this. All right. And so yesterday, all right. Yesterday was Memorial Day. Today's Tuesday, right? And I was sitting on my back porch and a lot of these emotions came up. And honestly, I was feeling sorry for myself, because I thought, nobody's even checking on me. To go, "Hey, I know it's a big weekend." All right. And then my friend James in Mexico City, he texted and goes, "Hey, a year ago today, or this weekend, I know it's bringing up a lot of stuff." And it felt so, I don't know. I just love that guy, And so I texted him back and went, so I'm sitting out there, right? And I'm thinking through all this, and here's what I tend to do, and I think I could put we tend to do, is we look at a traumatic event, and then you spin out and go on all the things I don't have, all the things that are wrong, all the things are whatever. And then it's like a switch flipped on me, and I thought, but what do I have? And I have this friend named James Henderson that sticks closer than a brother, who walked through the valley of the shadow of death with me. I know the Lord is my shepherd, he will. And he sent James and we walked through that together. And where would I have been without that? I've got a wife that has been with me through every step of the way and has suffered alongside me. And we are closer than we've ever been. And I think a lot of times what we do is we go, this is what's wrong and this is still broken, whatever. And we never take a time out and go, but this is what I have, right? I have, and I even walked in the office today and I just wondered, is anybody going to say anything? And what will I say? And nobody said anything. And I was like, they don't even remember. And then Jesse stuck his head in the door and goes, "Hey, you okay?" I went, "What?" He goes, "Because the day after Memorial Day is when," I went, I just looked at him and went, "Thank you." He goes, I said, "Thank you for asking. I'm okay." And then you did, and it's like, so if I could coach people out there, is like, hey, there's some people in your life that gone through hard times and there are markers in there. And you can say, well, they should be over it. I think everything's okay. They've moved on. They haven't. Yeah. And when those anniversary days come up, loss of a child, divorce, loss of a job, sabbatical. Hey, a year ago today, you get diagnosed, death of your father. Okay. For you to reach out and go, hey, I'm just checking in tender and just checking on you just to make sure. It's like, that's Jesus with skin on, right? There's nothing you could have said to me. You just acknowledged, tough day, right? Yeah, thanks for noticing. James said, hey, I know this is going to be a tough weekend. Thank you for noticing. He didn't need to do anything. I didn't need to bring up everything and rehash everything. But the very fact that someone cared enough to go, hey, I know that a day in history happened and it changed your life forever. Okay, it was God's will. All right. It ended up being a good thing. Absolutely. All right. It worked out for the best. Okay. But just acknowledging that, hey, like your dad's in heaven. Yeah. You don't just go like, yeah, he's in heaven. Aren't you over it? Like the first Christmas without your dad, the first birthday, the birth of a child, and you want your dad to be here, Like my dad's birthday is later this week. And of Of all the years in my life that time I needed my dad to be with me, it was this past year. So on his birthday, I was just like, which is the 31st. I just want to, go, man, I miss my dad. Now my dad had cancer and he was suffering and he's with Jesus and he's healed and he's happy and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I just wanted to walk in the door and sit down and go, can I just talk to you?
Yeah.
And just someone, right?
Yeah.
And just being able to acknowledge that, hey, something hard happened to you. Mm-hmm. I just want you to know that's not lost on me. I think that's the best way to take care of each other in times like this. I'm fine. This morning, I was downstairs. Robin came downstairs. She says, what are you thinking about? I went, a year ago today, I was getting ready to go to an elders meeting and didn't know what was about to happen, but our life changed. And she goes, but today you're not going to that elders meeting. Yeah. I went, I know. And you're okay. I know. But she knew what I was thinking about. But if she would have just blown it off and went, get over it, or you should be past that or something like that, it'd been so dismissive, And please hear, if somebody's out there going, oh man, I should have called. I'm not throwing stones at anybody or laying guilt trips on anybody going, yeah, you should have, right? It's like, I'm not saying that. It's like, I wonder how many times I have missed just because I'm so consumed with what's in front of me right now. And someone right beside me is going through one of those anniversary dates and I missed it. I bet thousands of times. Yeah. I'm trying to pay attention to that, going, this meant a lot to me that 3 very important men in my life just touched base with me and went, hey, you all right today? I am all right. And that's what you need. You need a text message going, hey, I know a year ago, 2 years ago, your dad went to heaven. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. That's really good. I have 2 questions from that.
I'm not carrying energy toward all the people that didn't call.
Yeah, no.
I'm just saying how important it is for those that did. Good. All right.
Yeah. My first question. So there's people listening right now that have been through trauma of some sort, whether that be the loss of someone, something that happened to them. We all have trauma in our life throughout our life that right now mentally aren't at a spot where they go, I'm going to think about the things that I do have. What would you say in the midst of that? First off, where would Jesus be at in the middle of that with them that they probably can't see right now? And then secondly, off of that is like, what's the first step is the wrong way to do it, but to move from, I'm just stuck in the sadness, the depression, the weight, the heaviness of this, to take one step towards, but here's what I do have. So 2 questions there. It's easy to say like Jesus is right there in it with him, but like where do we actually turn to look for that? Where do we turn to look for Jesus in the midst of those moments where it's like, it's so dark in your own story, like wherever that's been? And then secondly is what's one step towards getting that?
Well, so this is what comes to mind right now is Jesus was late to a funeral. Lazarus, one of his best friends, Mary, Martha, right? And he shows up and they said, if you'd gotten here in time, then our brother wouldn't have died. And he says, well, where is he? And he's in the tomb. And Jesus knows he's about to raise him from the dead. Mm-hmm. All right. But the shortest verse in the whole Bible is Jesus wept. He just sat in their tears with them. All right. He didn't say, where's your faith?
Yeah.
Don't you believe that he says it in a different way. Do you believe that I'm the resurrection and the life? Yeah. Okay. But right now my brother's dead. That's all I can feel. And he sits in it with them. He doesn't say you should be over this. You should have been further along. Obviously you don't trust me. Mm-hmm. He doesn't lecture them at all. He just sits in it with you. And I think that when you're sitting on your back patio or your deck or in traffic staring ahead going, I'm alone, nobody cares. And then where's Jesus? Is that you have to look over in the passenger seat and go, you're right here, right? It's not how I like it or what I want it to be or something like that. But just to acknowledge, and it's not this pressure of Jesus looking at you going, are you still sad about that? In the course of human history? I never hear that from Jesus, all right? And so I do. I think a lot of times he just sits on the patio with me and just sits with me. There's a Jewish term about when Jewish people die, people come over to your house and they sit in your living room. It's called Shiva, mm-hmm. like sitting Shiva. Mm-hmm. You don't talk. You're just with them, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're really, really, really feeling a lot of loss and missing your dad, what am I going to say to you?
Nothing.
You just don't want to be alone in it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so just acknowledging going, okay, he's with me in this. He's right here with me. And then I pray weird.
What does that mean?
I pray out loud. I got conversation. Like I look at an empty chair sitting on my back patio and go, why is it like this? And why does it have to be this way? And why didn't you stop that? Or why haven't you fixed me? I say it out loud. Like my neighbors probably think that I'm just high, you know? Yeah. And most of the time I'm not, but it depends on the old fashions.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's like, I mean, I pray, like, so I'm gonna get all kinds of criticism about this, but like when I smoke a pipe, so the pipe lasts about 8 minutes, 10 minutes, all right? And sometimes I picture that smoke as a prayer going up, like a fragrance, like an offering. Yeah. I know that's probably unbiblical. Maybe it's even sacrilege. I don't know. But sometimes I just go, hey, I got this amount of time with you, God. Yeah. And as I watch that smoke disappear it's almost like my prayers and my thoughts. Yeah. But there's verses in Psalms and Proverbs that like our worship goes up as incense before an altar. And I'm certainly not saying that pipe smoke is that. Yeah. But to me, it can be anything I want it to be.
It's a visual for sure.
It's a visual for me. And sometimes I got this time with you, and it's a time of worship and connection. And sometimes I have to have concrete things going, like this represents this right now, or this represents this, or this represents this. It doesn't, but it's just a reminder that I'm not alone and that I'm part of something else. That would be the first thing. The other thing, and this is where we're going in this faith series, and then the series after this is going to be on the 23rd Psalm, is it's all about what we set our minds on. And in my darkest times, when I'm really spinning out in sadness and depression and shame, it's because I'm believing something that doesn't agree with what God says is true about me. Yeah. So like the circumstances of sabbatical, they felt like this, which must mean this about me. And it was very different than what Jesus says is true about me. And so sometimes that first thing is going, okay, what do I know about God? And what does he say is true about me? You know, we talked about this last time when we were talking about self-control. Yeah. It's like you sit there and go, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm lazy, I'm this, I'm a piece of whatever, okay? Yeah. And then you feel all this, right? That doesn't agree with what God says is true about you. And so sometimes you have to come back going, all right, what does it say about me if I lost a child or if I can't keep a marriage together? And the answer is all the things, there may be some things we did wrong, but then we turn those into definitions about ourselves that don't agree with what God says is true. I made mistakes in my marriage. I made mistakes in my parenting. I made mistakes in my job. I might have broken some laws or whatever that is. But what does God say is still true about me? And so I think remembering, you got to think different. That's number one thing come out of Jesus' mouth. You got to rethink how you think about that. And the circumstances of our life, like I'm teaching on this week, even those circumstances, that we are horrible in interpreting them in the moment. And so the first step is always going back, okay, what did God say is true? My ex-wife said, this is true about me. It doesn't agree with what God says, all right? My leadership, I heard them say this, whether they said it or not. I heard them say this. It doesn't agree with what God says is true about me. It took me months to get over that, but I don't know where else to start. I think it would be really condescending for me to say, here's 3 steps to do this,
then you'll be out of it.
Take a walk, read a Bible verse, and then have a positive thought, something like that. It's like going, this is true about God, and God says this is true about me. I don't feel that way right now, but I'm going to hang on to that, and then you get through it. So I think that, again, we as human beings always gravitate towards what we don't have because that's what's screaming in our face, right? We don't have that. We don't look like that. We don't possess that, whatever that is. And then you have to go, but what do I have? Because if you just strip it all away and go, but the one thing I have to have, nobody can take from me. And do you still have that? And the answer is, yeah.
Yeah. So my last question for you just changed from what it was originally going to be, but in the midst of that, you had the worst day of your life, and now you're
it felt like it.
Yeah. And then you have a year.
I can think of a lot worse things.
Sure, but it felt like that.
But it felt in the moment. It felt like, yeah.
So from that day till now, over this past year, where have you looked at, hey, this isn't true, but here's what Jesus says about you. So over that whole year, when you've looked at that over and over and over again, what does Jesus say about you?
I'm not you're not fair, man. You're not a failure. You're a good man. You're a good leader. You made some mistakes. I still want you to lead my church. And most of the things that you think everybody's saying, they're not And some of them are, but nobody that really knows. And so I do believe that I'm still supposed to be Robin's husband. I'm supposed to be my kid's dad and pop, and I'm still supposed to be leading this church. Now, some things had to change on how I did it, but the other thing is my identity was Flatirons.
Yeah.
And my worth came from butts and seats and growing and campuses and stuff like that. And I felt like I'd lost my life because I felt like I lost my job. And I don't want this to ever happen, but if they ever sat me down and said, you're not going to be the pastor of this church anymore, I'd be fine.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Maybe not right away.
Yeah, no, it'd take a little while.
But this is not my identity.
Yeah.
Because eventually I'm not going to be married anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then what I have, the Lord is my shepherd.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have an income anymore. And I'm not going to have my health anymore. And I'm not going to have all the things that I have to have those things.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what do I have? It's just me and Jesus.
Yeah. And he's sitting across from you yesterday on the porch when you get that text from James. You look at that text and then you look up. What does he say?
Jesus?
Yeah.
I'm right here. I always have been.
That's good. See you next week.